Is Janet from another planet? 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 Is Janet from another planet?
Today's digital landscape with the spread of false information can lead to dangerous outcomes. It's crucial for everyone to think critically and verify sources and reflect on the impact of what they share. Let's promote responsible communication to ensure that truth prevails and actions remain rooted in reality.
The opinions you're about to hear on this show are strictly those of the panel.
The following program is rated TV MA LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to all of that. But you gotta cover my bases to try to make it as fair as possible. But I wanted to say thank you for joining me tonight, Michael. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite.
And I'm real excited about hearing about your books. I didn't even know that you had written any books until you were telling me about it. And I was like, wow, that's really good. I need to get you on the show sometime. And we finally were able to work together and get you on here. And I'm going to share your links, to like your X and your YouTube and to your books. And I'm going to let you tell us all about your story about, how you decided when you first decided you wanted to write, and then how you came up with your characters, where the bee came from, the bug, to write, how you did that and what motivated you and what kept you going, keeping you going. Because that's a problem I hear from a lot of writers is they get started and they get to a spot where they just can't get past it, and then they take off for months and months and months and they can't get back in. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and tell us whatever you want and start explaining some stuff. And as things you talk, then if I come up with anything that I think maybe we need to add to it, I'll jump in.
Fair enough.
But thank you very much for joining me tonight. And I'm going to bring up your first website while you're talking. And you said you had the books yourself. You can.
Yes, I do. They're right here next to me.
Awesome.
So the first thing you mentioned was the writing thing. Hey, Necro, one of my regulars in the chat there. So what happened is my mother was a college English major.
Mm-hmm.
So she insisted above everything else that I was going to be a high-level reader. To the point that at one point when I got in trouble, she sat me down because I was kind of a hyper kid when I was young, and she made me sit as punishment and read this massive book of the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a paperback, and it was no joke. I think about this thick with small print.
That sounds like my dad. He would make us sit and read books out loud to him. and he said it was good for us, but all it did was make me hate reading. So it wasn't until I was a lot older when I started reading comic books that I started getting back into wanting to learn more about good stories. So,
thankfully, it never made me hate reading, but it did make me avoid Sir Arthur Conan Doyle for a while.
yeah.
But it was a thing. But the one thing that helped with that is my mother was super into science fiction and fantasy. So one of the few things we had in common growing up was like Star Trek, Star Wars, any number of cheesy fantasy or sci-fi. We used to watch sci-fi original movies just for the fun of it because they were just so terrible. And that was the one thing we had in common. So it always kind of got me really interested in fiction early on. Now, as far as writing, I started kind of screwing around writing random junk, like fan fiction, all the kind of crap that every teenager probably wrote, whether they admit it or not.
Yeah.
And I wrote pages of that stuff, and it was like, you look back and it's like, it's awful. It's freaking terrible. The only thing that was good in it was my grammar and spelling. All the rest of it was awful, despite my mother. Originally I started a science fiction novel, and I had, that thing was 300 some pages long, the first draft of it.
Mm-hmm.
And because back then I couldn't afford a computer. And so I was writing it all on paper, and the first draft got destroyed. So I had to start all over. Mm-hmm. And I was, at that point, I'd already gone through the thing we talked about where I got out of the military and I was kind of having to bounce from place to place because I lost my house. And I was kind of still scribbling at that thing in my free time in between the, pen and paper RPGs, whatever the rest of us bums desperately looking for work out there were doing in our free time.
Yeah.
And I met this chick. We were dating. We had a falling out because some issues with her friends not being approving of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I had to pack my stuff up and go. And in the packing, final draft got left behind, and they burned it. So I lost the draft, draft again the second time.
Oh, but I cried my eyes out.
I was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm done for a while. And then I got into, I was having so much trouble because when I left from Ohio, I had to go back to California where my parents were. And I swore when I left at like 17, I was not ever going back to that place.
Yeah.
And because of what happened, I ended up having to go back to my parents' place. I was there for like 6 months working at a Kmart in the sporting goods section. Mm-hmm. And it was awful. And then, hey, AW is my fellow veteran friend there. He's also a writer.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. I might have to have him join me one night.
But that was when the 9/11 thing happened.
Oh.
While I was back in California. And I was like, I told my mom. My mom never approved of me joining the military the first time. Mm-hmm. And she had some misconceptions about why I joined. She thought, because I was living with my aunt when I left home while I was trying to find work. And she assumed that my aunt had forced me to do it. And I was like, funny, 20 years for her to finally talk to me about that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, you couldn't force me to do things. What made you think she did it? But I got back in. I went off the first cav. I was there for a couple of months, and then we deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom. Mm-hmm. And we did that. I came back, and at that point, my wife, who I'd met during training, and we got married, we're like, just in case something goes wrong, I came back on leave. We got married before they sent me back again.
Yeah.
And when I got
smart.
Yeah. When I got out, she was, like I said, she was in Bragg, I was in Hood. We hadn't seen each other for literally the first 4 years of our marriage. We didn't see each other. And we had guys at my unit taking bets on how long before the divorce. That was how stupid it had gotten.
Oh, terrible.
They didn't know my wife very well. We're both too stubborn to, and
Well,
we're
you know
not
what?
exactly.
That happens to many people in the
It does. I
military.
knew, guys.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that that's why the divorce rate is so high in the military. It's not because they don't love each other. It's because they never see each other, or they both get deployed to two different places at different times. So one's in at home and the other one's out. They come back and then they're gone. So they just don't get to see each other.
And the
that's
other
really
issue
hard
was
on a
that
relationship.
that the brass at Fort Bragg was breaking regs. They were supposed to be trying to help us get placed on the same base, and they just weren't doing it. But either way with that, I got back. I finally decided I was just going to get out. I've been through some crap, and with all the stress, I let them go ahead and they put me through the medical system, and I went ahead and let them med board me out on an honorable discharge so that I could actually be with my wife. So I moved out to Fort Bragg outside in the town outside. It's Fayetteville. Yeah, AW. I saw that once before too. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's sad.
So I get back there, and a friend of mine, Amanda, is an artist, and we were doing. We had some neighbors had moved in with us just a little bit after I moved in with my wife there off of Bragg, and they were also soldiers. And we were talking to them one weekend because we had loaned them some money because he was really low ranking and they were having trouble getting baby formula. So we just gave them some money, and we were like, okay, you guys got a kid, you need money, just take it. And they're like, we pay it back. I was like, look, don't worry about it, man, because we don't have any kids. And so we ended up becoming friends. And one day he comes up and he's like, hey, I've been trying to find stuff to do on the weekends. Like, do you play like tabletop RPGs or D&D or anything like that? And I was like, oh, I used to play a lot of tabletop RPGs, but I ain't touched D&D since like 3rd edition or something. And I only played it a couple of times. I was like, but we can do it. Cool. So we got together, and he picked up 2 other guys from the base that were interested. And we get together every weekend, and we do, we started with D&D, and we were all starting to have trouble with that because it was like 5th edition. And we did it for probably about a year trying to do the 5e thing. And then he switched everything to Pathfinder, so we all had to remake characters again in the Pathfinder system. And so what happened with the book is I came up with these 2 characters. One was a werewolf hunter who specialized in long-range weapons. So he basically had 2 black powder rifles, and like 4 of those little pistols. And then the other character was a centaur sorceress.
Yeah.
And so I ended up playing both of these characters because we only had at the time 3 players. So I ran 2 characters. And so as part of the joke with that, we just made those 2 a married couple. So it made sense for them to be together all the time. And because I played that character as the centaur as being very logical and cautious, over time, even as we started getting more players, the DM asked me to keep both characters in the game. And as we got more reckless players, this centaur sorceress ended up being like the weird voice of reason all the time, like the one constantly cautioning people not to do ridiculous things or die. To the point that the joke in and out of game started becoming that she was the team mom. And so whenever a big decision would come up, these goofballs are like, well, we should probably ask mom before we do that. Which, of course, the character's like, I'm younger than half of you. Stop. Don't call me mom. It's weird. She's like, it's weird. Stop, please. And so, not understanding the game. But we had that particular game went on for almost 3 years with these same characters. And I was talking to this friend of mine, Amanda. I was like, hey, I was like, man, I've had these characters forever. I was like, and I have a sketch done for like the werewolf hunter guy that's okay. I was like, but I was like, I haven't quite got the centaur put together the way I want her.
Yeah.
And so we were talking back and forth, and she did some sketches of Meriden, who's the sorceress.
Is she the one right here?
Yes,
on the
she's
cover?
the one, the redhead there. Yes.
Okay.
And so once she did those arts, I showed them to a couple of the guys in the group, and like, oh, they're like, okay, that's awesome. And in between games, I was kind of like, I was like, there's so much ridiculous stuff that has gone on in this game. I was like, I could make a like, we were drinking. I was like, I could write a book out of this. And my brother's like, why don't you actually write a book about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, first I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. I was like, because we're using a bunch of stuff like from D&D and Pathfinder. And he's like, so? He's like, just change some stuff. He's like, besides which, there's a bunch of stuff in D&D that is not copyrighted because they don't own it, because it's older than the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, maybe. And so I kind of started screwing around with a rough draft idea, just an outline. And then eventually, unfortunately, our group broke up because we were all military. Well, I was, ex-military. My wife was active, and so we're like, what if you don't aid? Wow, Kronos. But eventually the group broke up. It started to break up slowly because a lot of guys were getting deployed or they were getting sent off to other bases. So we were slowly losing our players. And then there was I won't get into too much detail, but our closest friend, the neighbor, there was an incident on the base where one of his friends died in front of him. And it was about the point he came to me and in tears because his wife came to me that night and she's like, I don't know what to do. She's like, he'll barely speak to me. I don't know how to talk to him about this. She's like, can you please come over and talk to him? So I went over there and he's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, I don't know if I should stay in. He's like, I don't know if I have it in me anymore. And so I talked him through, and he decided when we got done with the conversation, he was going to go ahead and he was going to, he's going to do his paperwork to get out because his time was coming up. And he hadn't decided if he was going to re-up or not.
Yeah.
And once they made the decision, his wife decided they were going to move closer out to like where her parents were at, I think in New Mexico or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lost like the last member of our group, like our best friends at the time. They moved out. Yeah. And so eventually we ended up, Jennifer's time was coming up pretty quick. And I don't mind if people know my wife's name. It's in my foreword of my book anyway.
That's my little sister's name. It's a popular name.
But so we moved. That was a whole bunch of nonsense I wanted to get into, from getting from North Carolina to Texas, which I had left Texas and then ended up coming back to live again. Yeah. And then I started working more on the book. So I had to go through and, I had to change some stuff. Some characters got removed from what the story was based on because of other players, and I didn't want to have to deal with any nonsense with other people's characters or people getting offended or nothing because I hadn't seen them in a long time. So I ended up focusing primarily on the two there on the cover, which would be the hunter and the sorceress. Mm-hmm. And then two of the other characters that had been guest characters that the DM had me play a couple of times, which on the second book would be the other two you see there with them. And that ended up being what the first book was based on, was some of the backstory we'd put together for them, and then how I kind of worked some events from that story into their own thing and filtered out all the stuff that I didn't want to deal with. That was how the rough draft started.
Well, that's really good. I mean, to be able to take some, because that's one thing I tell people when they look at me, when they see me sitting there playing, and we got little characters with a grid pattern, and we're just blah, 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 talking because we're playing a game.
Mm-hmm.
They ask me, I don't understand how it works, and I go, well, have you ever played video games? And they'll go, yeah. And I said, okay, it's the same thing. And he goes, well, it doesn't look the same. And I go, okay, when you play a video game, the game is already set up for you to follow a path through it, basically, to get to the other end. Well, ours is the same way, but we use our imaginations to make our path, depending on different scenarios or how our dice roll out. So we don't know what the path is until we're playing it. Okay, there is no there could be destinations because your GM makes up areas you could go, but because of what you or your partner or someone else on the team might do, it takes you in this direction or that direction or in two different directions. See? Yep. So it's never the same when you're playing in DD because it's all depends on the people playing the game and how the GM reacts to what they're doing. So to me, it's better than any video game can ever be because it's all in here and in here. You know
and
what
that's
I mean?
Considering that I do both. So
yeah, but the thing is you're getting the best of both worlds basically. But when you're playing a video game, I feel that you're seeing it different than the person who's never played DD.
Honestly, any tabletop game, because like the other fantasy game it ran on a completely different system, and we ran a side game on that system.
Yeah.
It's funny because I even went back later and I had actual miniatures. I wish I had them here, but I had actually miniatures made of some of the characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what Bruce does. He paints, and we play with most of the ones he paints.
Yeah,
been trying to get him to sell. When he sells his game, when he starts selling the game, why not sell little sets of 5 characters or whatever? A bard and a barbarian or whatever that person might be interested in having. You sell that with your set. You say you get the book, you get the rules, you get all the different stuff plus 5 characters.
My brother has to do the painting. I'm terrible at it.
Because he loves to paint. That's what he does for his relaxation. I can't paint worth crap. Honestly, I've done it.
Neither can I.
It's really, really hard.
Like when I went to art college, even on just the paper painting, I almost failed that. I came so close to having to take that over.
I think it's so interesting, the fact that you were able to take something that you have in your imagination, like anybody who writes, but you take it from your love of DD, basically, and be able to write 2 whole books. I mean, and one of them is like 300 something pages, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot. That is a lot of detail.
That's just to give you an idea. So this is the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the
and
that's the print wise, I don't know if your camera's gonna it's not large print. And then the second book, due to formatting issues with how some of the stuff changed, we end up making it's actually more like an RPG book.
Yes.
In the size, and it's also not large print either.
Yeah, that is really, really good. I mean, the thing is that it's so neat to get to meet people who like games that I like, because I grew up in a house with 4 sisters and none of them were into comic books. None of them were into any of the stuff that I liked. And my mother sent me to modeling school and stuff to teach me how to be a lady, basically, because I wasn't, I wore blue jeans and I had a ponytail. I wasn't into all the stuff my sisters were into. And I think she was worried about ever getting married or anything. So she, because I was such a geek, a nerd, I was into things that no one else in my family was into. So
I married a goth tomboy who was born in Jersey and raised in Georgia. So
well, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with tomboys. But I'm so thankful, though, at the time that I was raised, that there wasn't a counselor at my school that was saying, maybe you really want to be a boy. We can fix that for you. I'm so thankful that never happened to me because, I'm happy to be a girl. I really am. And I'm thankful that I had lots of guy friends that understood me because my sisters didn't. So I think I turned out okay. I mean, I'm happy with who I am. And
it's
I
a
love
thing
being
too. Like my wife jokes that like 3 of my best friends are like females.
Yeah.
And I was like, because she's always just there when we're like, because I was an only child. I got separated from my sister when she was born. And she's like, they're like his little sisters. She's like, I'm not worried about it. Because she had somebody when she's on the military. Don't you have a problem with your husband talking to these women? And she's like, no, I don't care. She's like, why would I worry about that?
Well, some people do. I mean,
they do,
me,
and some people give reason to worry.
If you're dating someone and they don't like you talking to any women or stuff like that, then they got a problem already, and that's somebody I wouldn't recommend you date. I mean, you should be able to, still have your friends, still be able to do. If you were a bowler before, you should still be able to bowl or play golf. Or any of the stuff, nerd stuff like me. I like going to cons. If the guy I'm with doesn't like cons, he probably won't want to be with me a lot.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
And that's why it's important to date. So you get to know the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with and make sure that you're compatible. It's so sad to see people that, Shadow. Hi, Shadow. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so many people end up getting in these, what are those apps where you swipe left and swipe right?
The dating app nonsense.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't know anything about each other, but yet you're doing the most intimate thing possible. It's just stupid. To me, you're starting in the middle of a relationship. But when you're in a relationship like you have a woman that loves you and encourages you to write. To do the things that you're good at,
And in fact, she periodically gives me guff because she's actually reading the books.
That's good too. But the thing is, you're a lucky guy. You had to work hard to get what you have with your wife. You had to sit like for 4 years, like you said. You guys never got to see each other, and finally you decided it's time for me to step down out of the military. I'll let my wife keep doing the military part, and I'm gonna do this other thing in my life, but with her.
It was a decision I had to make. I mean, it was hard too, because when I got out of the military, I was completely lost. Yeah, I had no idea, and there was a lot of stress and other crap, and so she ended up being like, yeah, she's like, because there is some stuff that I have to deal with. Like I'm not much of a fan of the 4th of July anymore, for example. And so she's like, I would rather you be at home and try to not like lose your mind so that we can actually see each other than be going out trying to do some 9-to-5 job on like partial disability and then have some come apart and get into trouble or something.
Yeah.
And, that was early in our marriage. I've got through a lot. I've come a long way since then, I think. But that's kind of been the way it stayed since.
But you see a lot of these couples that are able to work it out. You know why? Because communication, they actually speak to each other and look each other in the eye and talk to each other about what's going on. So they know what's happening with each other's lives and they can be there for each other. So many people today, they just kind of fly by the seat of their pants, and then they wonder why the other one is upset with them because they're never around. They never talk to them, never listen to them, all those things. So when you have two people that are in an actual relationship that actually speak to each other and share when they're upset, hey, you really hurt my feelings, that kind of thing. But you can do it because you know that you love each other and that you're going to work it out. It's not just something that you say, oh, well, I'm tired of this, that they just give up because they never try. They never try. And that's why so many relationships, I think, falter is because they don't have communication in their relationship. So it's nice to see a good, healthy relationship because, none of us are perfect. We all
No.
make mistakes. And anyone who walks around and thinks their shit don't stink, well, that's the person I'd turn around and leave. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who thinks that there's nothing wrong with them and they can do no wrong. Because guess what? They can. There's nobody perfect in this world. The only one that was perfect in this world was Jesus, period. That's how I look at it. But it's nice to see a man who's able to sit down and write 2 novels. Basically, that's how big they are. I mean, they're huge. With all the detail from what you were telling me about in there, and to get them published.
Because the third one's the one giving me trouble.
That's a really hard thing to do. People just don't seem to have drive anymore. I see so many young men today and women that they start out, all gangbuster, but within a year they're like, they'd rather go make coffee in a coffee shop than sit down at a desk and try to finish what they were starting on.
And that's that's ditching any pretext that any part of it is easy.
Mm-hmm.
That first book took about 3 years, if you count editing, to finish.
Yep.
The second one, this one here, took about two and a half years to finish, and this third one, at the rate it's going right now, is probably going to end up taking longer.
Yeah. Well, it's not easy, especially depending on what's going on outside of the book writing.
Yeah, and there's the trick.
In society.
I'm running a YouTube channel. There's all this external stress,
mm-hmm.
And we have stuff with animals around here. We want stuff with our own pets, and there's been 2 unfortunate. My parents passed within the last 2 years, so we had a lot of running around. We had to go all the way out to California to handle 2 funerals. It's been really, really messy the last couple of years.
Yeah, I just lost my father last month. I lost my mom like 6 years before that. And it is tough, especially if you had a real close relationship with your mom or your dad and you lose them. Because it's like there's a gap there. Every time you get in a situation, you're like, oh, I got to call Dad. Oh,
It's harder too, because in my case anyway, because my mother and I were at each other's throats for almost 20 years on and off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could not be in the vicinity of one another. And my stepfather misunderstood that it had something to do with him because he kind of got caught in the middle. So he spent a long time assuming that I hated him. Yeah. And I didn't. I saw him as my father, but we just didn't always get along, see eye to eye. And my mother and I were always fighting. It took 20 years for my mother and I to actually get our shit together where we were speaking on a regular basis and not yelling at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then it felt like I only had a few years of that before she passed.
But you got to that point. So many people never get there. So that's what you got to focus on. The fact that you did have a relationship when she went, mm-hmm. to the next plane or whatever you want to have believe, whatever you believe. But the thing is, I'm thankful that you did get to have the solid relationship that you always wanted and had to work so hard to get it. So
I remember her. I remember her emailing me pictures because for some reason she wouldn't use the chat messengers, so she was emailing me pictures of when she got a copy of my first book. And Dad had hinted that they weren't in the best of health. So I did what I could to try to get that first book. I really kind of put myself on a crunch schedule to try to get that first book out because I wanted her to see it because she was a huge reader. And then I got it out and she was putting out these emails about how she was showing it off to all her friends and all that. And then when she passed, Dad would ask me, even though he wasn't much of a book guy, he would ask periodically how things were going with the book and that. And we knew things had gotten weird with Dad when he stopped asking about the book and he started asking me questions about Mom, which was where our first red flag came in, that he was starting to, his memory was going.
Yeah.
And that was, that happened about 3 or 4 weeks where he was asking me if I'd called my mom, and my wife and I were like, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
And then he passed just 4th of July, oddly enough. The guy came home from Nam and passed away in his own home on the 4th of July.
Well, we have no idea why certain dates are picked for certain people. We won't know until we're there to ask, hey, what happened? Why that day? But the thing is, you've had a lot of tough breaks, but to me, all they've done is improve you. You know what I mean? They've opened your eyes to a lot of things that other people would just walked away and quit on.
And I think that's a thing too about writing. Like my brother and I have talked about this before. I feel the reason that I'm not going to go on a blanket thing and say all, but some modern writing is so weird is like the lack of experience, and I don't even mean like combat experience or tragedy, but just the lack of even like intellectual experience, looking at things, reading things. Because there's stuff in here, because I grew up on all kinds of stuff. There's stuff in here based on people I knew. But in the first book, there's a side villain who's literally based on freaking Robert Shaw from Jaws.
Yeah.
There's a recurring NPC who's a town guard who I based on Dick Miller. It's stuff I grew up with these guys.
Sound familiar?
Dick Miller was, if more recently, he was the neighbor from the Gremlins movies, the guy with the tractor. He was in a bunch of old black and white sci-fi movies I watched.
Yep. Well, see, that's what's so interesting. It's the fact that you took things that, like me, I'm writing a book myself. I'm almost finished, and I base characters in my story from people, my friends, family, sisters, people I didn't like, just like like you did, and it adjusted to where they fell in the book. My feelings for them and where I felt their personality and their type of character would fit in my story, and as my story was unfolding, each character popped up and I was like, that person's perfect for this character. So I'm going to start working on their looks, everything about it, and put it in that way. Did you do that for your story or not?
Not so much with the main characters, but like I said, there were a couple of character actors I grew up with who they were inspiration for some of the characters. There's a character who's literally a minstrel in the third book that was based on Johnny Cash because I listened to a lot of his music growing up.
Yeah.
But it was just based on kind of personality types that I'd encountered and experiences that me or my wife or my brother had, which kind of helped formulate, how some of these characters were represented in the story itself. And that's why I say that some things were altered, from the old game story that we adapted. And I tried to give it, I wanted to put a lot more personality behind it than just what had happened at the game table. And since I was having to write characters into larger roles, I had to adapt entirely how those characters were involved. Because the central focus has a lot to do, at least, in the backdrop of the overarching plot, with the characters has a lot to do with loyalty and trust and who your family is. Because the werewolf hunter, Grayston, starts out as a complete stranger to who are the main characters initially, which is Meriden, her aunt, and her 2 cousins, and her parents, because they live in this kingdom that is run by centaurs. It's a kingdom of centaurs. She saw Grayston once in the woods across a river where they kind of happened to notice each other, where he was camped out with these other mercenaries he was working with. Yeah. He finds out something terrible is going to happen to their home, so he rushes out there to try to warn them. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody really trusts him but he manages to get her to at least vouch for him enough to let him talk to her family. And there's conflict in there that I try to feel like makes sense. Like Meriden aunt is the captain of the guard, and she doesn't trust him at all because, as far as she knows, he's just some random mercenary that just showed up spouting a bunch of nonsense about some people coming to kill them.
Yeah.
And, there's always inherent bias, which I try to play that in a realistic way. She's, a professional soldier. All she knows is this guy sells his skills for money. She doesn't know anything else about him.
Yeah.
And he ends up becoming trusted, unfortunately, because the attack actually happens, despite him trying to help them stop it. And a lot of the people in the kingdom actually get killed. He's trying to help them with the evacuation efforts. This big war machine rolls in and literally starts shelling their home while these raiders are coming in through the holes in the walls. And basically, her mother's dying act is to basically force her to leave with her cousins and this mercenary and her aunt so that somebody can try to evacuate the rest of the population.
Well, is there certain hidden rules or histories or lore or details like that readers probably won't even pick up on the first time they read it?
Initially, it's only hinted at the way magic works in the world. It's explained a little bit more later through a conversation. But in this world, the only people who can naturally use magic are elves, who there are barely any left as far as anybody knows at the time.
Yeah.
And some centaurs. And even among centaurs, it's considered somewhat rare. Meriden and her mother are the only two centaur sorcerers you really see in the books. It's that rare. And the issue is with so many of them being wiped out early on, it becomes a matter of them assuming that the four of them may be the last centaurs alive on the entire continent.
Well, are the characters hiding if they do have something where they feel like they are going to be magical, that they just don't tell anyone?
Yeah, there's
someone might hurt them.
Normally, it's not a concern because magic has been kind of such an absent thing out in the world at large. Because the centaurs, they traded with people and spoke to people, but they didn't usually travel very far from their home. It was a walled kingdom. They didn't really go very far out. They'd go out in surrounding areas to patrol or trade with some of the smaller neighboring villages and whatnot, but they didn't really do. There was a war that's mentioned early on, and since they built this kingdom, they really didn't venture very far from it. So,
I was just gonna ask you, what was the hardest part for you when you were writing to work your story arc through? What was the hardest part for you to fulfill that part of it, to get to the ending?
There were a few points in the first book in particular that were a little rough to get around because I didn't want to reveal the main villain too early, at least not too expeditiously, because I didn't even intend for that villain to really be in the first book yet.
Yeah.
So it had to just kind of be by extension or mention, or maybe you caught a glimpse of said villain at some point, but they haven't really done much yet. Because the first book is focused on one of the people who are subordinate to the main villain and what they're doing in connection. And there's kind of a moment early on where another character you meet is presumed to be one of the big bad guys. And that doesn't necessarily turn out to be true. That turns out to be kind of a misdirection, but only because his situation changed.
Well, do you have more than just the cover art, or do you have other pictures in your
there is, in the second book, there is, let me see if I can find it. There are a couple of pictures in the second book. The first book didn't, because my friend and I didn't really have a lot of time. But there is this sketch in the front cover, if I can angle it properly. Nice.
Because I was going to ask you about that. How did you sit and work with the other person that for them, for it's a woman, right?
Amanda, yes.
Yeah. So
There's
for
the other
her
one.
to-
That's the human, elf form of the main character.
Okay, was it her idea after you explained the character to her to come up with what it
We
looked like?
actually sat down.
An idea of what
Sat
to
down
do?
on Discord with
Mhm.
video footage up as she was doing the art, and we discussed it back and forth during the actual creation process.
Well, that's really good because I know a few people who have gone through that process, and as soon as they tell them what they were doing, what they were thinking, and they said they had something in their head, right? Well, then they get the pictures back and they're like, it wasn't anything like I wanted.
Yeah.
So
that
we
I
kind of
understand.
butted heads back and forth, and that's one. Let's see, a lot of people hate AI, but I have a couple of other friends now that talk to AI about what they want. They get a visual of it, and they get the AI to give them some renderings of something that they're leaning toward. Then they send that to the other person, and they actually draw what they get from that, and they were both really happy with it.
It was easy with Amanda because she and I had known each other for quite a while. I've known her long enough that her daughter's a teenager, and she was like an infant when we met, like barely 2 years old.
Well, see, you're lucky at that aspect because many people don't have that option.
But my cover artist, I never had a problem with her, obviously, because I have her do the covers every time. But initially, we did run into some problems because my cover artist is Indonesian. She speaks fluent English. But there were some issues initially during conversation where we had to kind of go over things a few times.
Yeah.
And, there were some rough drafts, there were sketch corrections, and that took a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. Because like this character here, the elf here, who is one of the main characters of the story, didn't actually have any reference materials. Like by then I had the sketches of Steel Fangs, the big guy there in the back with the metal parts, and the hunter and the centaurs, but I didn't have any references for Mel. She had no sketch work or anything done. So I had to walk through with Adechin, who's my cover artist, and figure out how we wanted her to look on the cover. Because there was no reference for her at all.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. When you're talking to someone about, you're trying to come up with your own character and you're rolling dice to say whether they're going to be a barbarian or half elf and half human or half whatever, orc, you don't know. Yeah. And if you go all by the dice, I was going to ask you if you did anything like that when you were developing characters or where your story was going to go. Did you ever use dice or think about using dice to do it?
There was a couple times where I flipped the coin where I was having trouble figuring something out, but no, I never went fully random. I tried to think everything out. I have a reference document actually that I've been keeping as I write the books that I update as I go, partially for that because it's names, people, places, events, and it's this long freaking document I keep on both of my computers for reference so that I don't screw things up or have something go out of continuity too bad. Yeah. So I have to go back as I'm writing and be like literally recently I was working on the third book. I'd hit chapter 4 and I stopped and I'm like, wait, did they have this particular weapon that they had with them at the end of the second book when they left home this time? And I had to go all the way back to chapter 1 from chapter 4 and read back through and double check that because those weapons were kind of a big thing near the end of the second book. I'm like, well, why would they leave that behind? I was like, now I have to go back and make sure. And I had noticed I actually had not mentioned it at all. I was like, now I have to go back and I have to fix this before I go any further forward.
Yeah. Yeah, see, a lot of people don't realize that, but somebody reading your book would see it, in that detail. You might be going back and forth here and there, but they're going through it and they're scrutinizing as they're reading it. Because there's some people, they're that bad with watching movies too, picking out every little thing that they see is wrong with it. That's just their personality types. But what I wanted to ask you too was, once you finish your first book, and you were already thinking about the next one and what you were planning on doing in that story, did you ever think about if you had a soundtrack made for your book, what what kind of music would you have in it? What would you what genres or artists would you think that you might pick and choose from the first book?
If I had my druthers, it'd probably be a combination of stuff from James Horner, Bear McCreary, although he kind of annoyed me recently with some statements he made. And I would want to be careful about like lyrical music.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few types of soundtracks I could think. Nothing too outlandish. Not for this book for this series anyway. It's funny because it's like talking about the whole writing process thing too. When I initially released this on Amazon, I panicked because I was reading the sample copy they sent me of the print, and I noticed there had been some mistakes that I hadn't noticed right after I'd published it live. So I panicked. I had to run back on Amazon on the KDP thing, cancel the freaking live, and then go back to the base document and make a bunch of corrections, which is why it took me longer to edit the second book, because like I don't want to do this again. Because I had to pull the book,
you learn from your mistake,
and then upload it again before I could put it back up live.
Well, see, but the thing is that you proved that you can do it. You know, you noticed it, you went and you immediately took care of it, so that won't happen again because you did it. And so many people don't learn that way. They just keep putting it off, I know you know what I'm talking about because you've seen so many people that do that. And it's very annoying. And when they don't have to, if they just put a little bit more oomph, you know, behind themselves, saying you can be it, you can do it every morning. That's what I tell people. This is one of my motivations is you get up every morning and you make your bed, because my dad used to say that. You make your bed because guess what? Now you've already accomplished something today. So now the next thing, what's the next thing you're going to accomplish? And try to look at it that way, saying, I'm going to do it, you know, and you just tell yourself you're going to make it, you're going to do it, and you can do it. And then once you did it, and look, you got a book done, now you got another one, and you're working on thinking about what you're going to do with your third book. So many people don't even get finished with their first one because they just keep putting it off because something else comes up, but they keep making excuses. That's what they are.
Yeah. And see, writer's block is a very real thing. It's not always an excuse unless you're George R.R. Martin. But I'm not even going to go into those weeds.
I know. I was so angry about all that mess. But yeah, I know what you mean. Especially since he was writing other books too.
Oh yeah. It's like I've had people request me to do a side story. Ironically enough, on one of the side characters, this big jackass here in the background, the one who actually started out as an enemy, I've had a couple people that read it that want me to do a side story based on that character because there's a lot of stuff that's been just kind of mentioned about him in passing.
Yeah.
I had some people like, well, I want to know about why they call him the Butcher of Kargenwald or, you know, that kind of thing. And it's something I actually said I'm going to consider, but like I need to finish the main books first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's something that you be putting notes on the side, filling in little gaps and thinking something to pop in. You have to write it down right then because you may not remember it later. That can all be used for the next part. You know, if you decide to step to the side and say, hey, I'm going to do a whole thing on this one character, and you can do it because you've gathered all this different information to be able to do that. But one thing I wanted to ask was that if you could make this into a, a animation or a movie or a series or a mini series or something like that, what would you want it to be? Would you want it to be like a cartoon, or would you want it to be, you know, more lifelike?
It's been a hard line between my brother and I and my wife because we have jokingly talked about this before. Number one, it would never go anywhere near Amazon or Netflix.
No.
It
Netflix
would have to be
and Disney. Don't let Disney get a hold of it either.
It would have to be either animated or CG. Some of these characters, there's no way you're going to be able to do them in live action format without CG anyway.
Yeah.
Steel Fangs is a 9 foot tall hyena man with like mechanical parts, and like the lower half of his jaw is all metal.
Yeah.
You have 4 centaurs, one of which is wearing plate armor. You're not doing that live action. There's no way in hell.
No, well, the thing is, it's the fact that you're already thinking about those things. That's good, because so many people, a few people that I know, because from the movie industry and also music industry, because I've been in a couple of music videos and stuff. They look through websites that have books and little things like that on them, and shorts. A lot of people make shorts. That would be something that I would think that you would. That's what I would recommend you do, is to talk to somebody about taking some of the information from your first book and writing a short script, maybe 20 pages or whatever, and have that made into a short. Using AI, you can just have it, tell it what you want and make it, and then put it out there to shop your 3 books or more. It's potential for a series or something.
Stop.
That's what I would do.
The one request I've had is, and it irks me on a personal level. I know why people do it, but I've never liked the audiobook thing. But I've had people ask me to do audiobook versions of them, and I'm sitting there going, it's not the worst idea, but A, I have to figure out the program to do it, and I haven't had time. And 2, then I have to have the time while still writing another book to try to sit down and do the audio recording for this. And I'm like, that's not in the cards right away. It's literally just me and my brother. I'm the writer, I'm the editor, and my brother does the page layouts when the editing's done. Yeah,
there are a few people that I've talked to. Do you know who Doc Blaylock is?
It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, well, I interviewed him on one of these shows, and he was talking about his book that he wrote. It's a novelette, or something like that.
A novella?
Novella. That's it. And it's about a guy who's he solves crimes, and he has like a magic fedora and it's like a coat. So when he jumps, he doesn't slam into the ground. It kind of slows him down. Things like that.
I got it.
It's a magical type of thing. It's really interesting. But he's working on trying to get a one of the books where they're talker, people are speaking, but the voices are of the other characters.
Yeah.
So I am on a website where I do my voice, because I have I've done like 1 year I did the Kitten Bowl for the puppy halftime show for the Animal Planet.
Nice.
That I did all the little Kitten Bowl things where all the little kitties, for the meow meows and stuff like that. So I've done audio stuff, and I do have a couple of things like that. I've done computer voice, and I've done all different things. But there's tons of people on there that for very little money, because they're trying to break into the business or whatever, do voices. So you might be able to do something like that. I mean, there's just so much out there, but until you start looking, or you have someone else that's interested in it and they're looking for it, you know what I mean?
I'd have to look
ever give
around.
up, though. Just keep doing, just keep putting it out there, and who knows what can happen, because that's why, I'm always asking people, I'm always posting in all my stuff and saying, hey, anyone want to be on the show? Anybody want to do this? Anybody do that? Not because, I'm making money or anything. It's because I want to get more information out there. And if I can help anybody get one person that they might need to meet, see it, then to me it was worth doing it. But plus it's interesting, you know what I mean?
The other
I
thing
love
is
learning about new things and sharing stories and seeing what I can do to help.
The other thing too is, unfortunately, these are not they're not high traffic books. I don't have thousands of dollars for big advertising campaigns, and unfortunately I have to self-publish, because I think you can probably agree that the mainstream publishing market right now is inundated with a lot of really cringe-inducing crap. And if you're a lot of time, if you're a male writer and you don't have any kind of backing, you're not getting on the shelves in a public store.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah,
unfortunate because that's not how I grew up, but it's just kind of
Mhm.
how it is now with the mainstream.
Yeah, that's why it really does have to do with somebody seeing what you have, that likes the story and wants to see it come to life in that aspect, and then they'll start shopping around the story because they want a part in it. Let's say they want to be the voice of one of your characters,
Mhm.
so they'll talk to other people, and that's how it really does work in the business that I've seen in New Orleans. And I was there, that's the kind of stuff I did. I stand in work, and I did all kinds of different things, and that's mostly how people found out about things, is that somebody would see it, or they heard about it from a friend of theirs, and they'd go, well, shoot it my way and let me look at it or whatever. And you never know what can happen. But the thing is don't just say, that's never going to happen, and then shut it out. If you hear somebody mentioning it or something, and you think that maybe I'll send it something, or let them look at it or whatever.
And of course,
And not close the doors.
Yeah.
So
My other thing, of course, and I think especially nowadays, you kind of have to have all of this, is trust issues.
Mhm.
Like, I've seen personally and, in business, so many people get completely screwed over because you happen to get lucky. You get a publisher, and the first thing you want to do is take ownership and change everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I've
I'm
had people
sorry.
try to do that. I say, no thanks.
Somebody talked to me. I was like, no, I would rather be the whatever you want to call the stereotypical starving artist, struggling writer, whatever, than have my stuff just stolen and completely bastardized.
Yeah, it's tough. I've had to have a few people wanted to see some of my, my screenplays or different things that I've got, and I've made them sign non-disclosure. They read it and they're like, I really like this. Can you do this, that, and the other? And I'm like, no, because if I change the race of the person, or if I change their gender, it changes the character.
Yep.
Because they grew up somewhere else, things are different. I'd have to change the whole thing, and the story is no longer the story that you think you want.
Like, I did have somebody in passing, and I'm pretty sure it was intended to be malicious as a question, but they asked me about races of my characters, and I was like, I was like, well, it's a fantasy setting for starters. But they're like, there's one dark skinned, you would call him black, basically, character in the story. Like, he appears in the first book. His name's Gerard. And it's explained via that character why you don't see more people like him. Because the lady who he works for is his grandmother. And she explains that her daughter ran off from the family when she was young, and she met a sailor from a faraway continent who happened to be at port, and they had a night, and she came home pregnant, and that was her son. And it wasn't looked on very nicely because she ran away from home and came home with, basically had a black child. And they're not a common race in that part of the world. It's explained. They've never been to the country where those guys even exist. Yeah. He was just a sailor that her mom met, and they hit it off. But then because, he's a sailor, he's not staying around. He was gone. And then the family tried to disown her. And the grandmother was like, well, I'm not going to let you do that. Yeah. And then when the mother passed away from illness, she raised him. And so he lives in this little village, and he's kind of like, I'm not sugarcoating it. Like, he knows that there are some people who talk behind his back, but he's there to help his grandmother with her place. And he's just he's a good natured guy. He's this big dude, and he's good natured, and he's defensive. At one point when the village is being attacked, the guy goes out there and he's fighting these undead things and these monsters with a wood chopping axe because he doesn't want him to get his grandmother.
Well, I wanted to ask you another question about your characters, and you're kind of doing it right there with that character. Is if you were to meet the characters in your book in real life, you just got to go and meet them. Is there a couple that you'd want to go and have a drink with? or is there a few that you would just say don't go near that guy or
Um,
don't go near her?
Well, to be fair, the ones you wouldn't
You'd
want to go
warn
near at
people
this point in the
about.
story are dead, so that wouldn't be much of an issue. But
No.
yeah. As far as drinking, Steel Fangs, Dellen, who's the older cousin of Meriden, who was another member of the guards, his sister Deshana, and probably Grayson himself would all probably be good drinking buddies. And there are a few.
That'd be good, see, because that tells me that you really did put in a lot of work on your characters, on getting them to be where, like any story, if you have a character that is boring or flat, or he's not very nice, or he's just bland, he doesn't have a good character arc, people aren't going to care whether they live or die. Right.
And I feel like, having some level of attachment that way is important. Like, I try not to overdo tragedy, because at that point you're just like drama farming and it becomes meaningless. But there was a couple parts I wrote where I have no shame. I actually cried a little writing a couple parts of two of these books, because it was just a terrible scene. And it was a scene that was terrible because the story kind of demanded it to be that way.
Well, that's good, because you add realism in there, because guess what? Tragedy happens in real life. It's how we all adjust and how we react to the tragedy that makes it more realistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if everybody just kind of goes, oh, well, it's not going to be a very good story, not going to bring people in and want to root for the good guy. You know what I mean? That type of thing, and see the bad guy lose. That kind of thing. And to me, that's the kind of stories I love, because I want to care about the characters, even if I don't like them. If you have a very good bad character that people hate, it helps the character root for the hero, because by the end they're like, yes, you did it. You're excited because you're actually seeing what you wanted to see unfold. And it sometimes it's really hard. Like reading Cujo was horrible. I was heartbroken at the end. I was like, I wish I never read this book, but then you see the movie and I'm like, yes, why did the book end this way? It was totally different. The ending, but a lot of people don't know that, because if they didn't read the book, they wouldn't know that. But it was horrible. I was heartbroken at the end. So it is nice to know that I'm going to pick up a book and I'm going to love it, because I want to root for the good guys. There has to be bad things that happen to some people, because you have to care about what's going on. You got to see them struggling to get there. And then when they do get there, you're like, yes, he did it. You're excited about it.
And part of that character building. Yeah. There's a slow burn romance between the two main characters, like through the first book. And like the one compliment I got from one of my female friends who actually read it is like, she's like, why do you write this better than most female writers that I've read recently? And I was like, I don't know how to take that, but I'm going to take it as a compliment.
Wait, why do you have to be a female to write about romance?
Well, no, she found it strange that she said I wrote more believable female leads than a lot of women authors that she'd read recently. And I kind of scratched my head at that one initially. And then my wife was like, well, she's like, the girls you wrote in your stories, they act like women. They don't act like either some complete disaster or some invincible freaking know-it-all all the time, I think is how she put it, something to that effect. And I feel like there's also a balance you have to have, like with character writing. Like you have to have moments of camaraderie. You have to know when to have some humor, but not like MCU that shit where everything is a joke.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a line, like for example, there's a scene where there's a bond that forms between Dellen, who's the older cousin of the main character Meriden, and he was a soldier. And this is after Grayson has kind of proven himself, despite being, as far as they know, a mercenary. Yeah, that he's actually been there. He's had their back. And so this is kind of you know, if you've been a soldier, you know this. You shoot the shit, you rib at each other. And because he noticed there'd been kind of a spark between Meriden and Grayston, they're sitting there drinking at the fire, and he makes a joke about I believe he said something about the implications of a saddle.
Yeah.
And Grayston about spits his drink into the fire at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing to have, you know, appropriate humor at an appropriate time. And
Yeah,
I feel like
that's
that's
good.
hard. That's hard to do.
Yeah, well, it is. It depends on. That's why certain writers can write certain genres, and they can write, like, some people can sit down and write a romance novel in a week, okay, and then another person can sit down and try to write a romance novel, and they can't do it. It just sucks because they're not meant to write romance. So it really does. What I was going to say when you said what you did about the woman saying that you could write women better than the woman would, well, maybe you're just a better writer. It has nothing to do with whether you're a man or a woman. I think it's all in here and here. It's how you envision something and how you feel it and how you can put it down where other people can feel what you are feeling.
It may also, theoretically, it may also have to do with just the way that people perceive other people or how they've interacted with other people. Because the stuff that she cited, and it was stuff admittedly that she hated, it was like, there's a lot of women in the industry that see every other woman as kind of an obstacle or an enemy. I've seen it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like that might actually be reflected in the way they write some of these characters. And it's really kind of weird.
Yeah, it's because I see a lot because I had 4 sisters. So you have a lot of people that are jealous of other women because, oh, she's too pretty, she's too tall, she's too skinny, her skin's too nice, you know. So I'm not going to make her too pretty because I don't want her to be the number one woman that men like or think about or dream about her character. I want them to dream about this character. See, that's the problem. Instead of just writing the character to fulfill its need in the story, they have to pick and choose what they want the other people reading it to, whether they like her more than that other person because of this nose or, you know, you're right. That really is dumb. But I do see that sometimes, especially when you see the scripts. I'm talking about screenplays wise, and the characters unfolding in front of you on a TV show, the pettiness of people.
Yeah,
basically. But when you're writing a novel, I think it should be a little different than trying to write something that's going to be on TV or on a movie or even in a play, right? It's all different types of writing to fulfill all of those needs. But the thing is, I want to read a story that I want to see the people be successful, or a person that I feel like is hurting other people isn't going to be successful. That type of thing. That's the kind of person I am, though. But that's why I am in real life.
That's why I try. You know, I pulled as hard as I could away from any of this. I guess, for lack of a better term, the modernity of a lot of fantasy writing. It's like, yeah, there's the setting is different. It's like, it's not Tolkien fantasy. Nobody's writing Tolkien but Tolkien. But it's the setting where there is a vast jump from things from one place to another. Like Beleriand, which is where Grayston turns out to actually be from, is more technologically advanced than where they are in the continent of Marivold, which is where the Centaur Kingdom, where the first part of the story takes place. So they have more advanced weapons. They have black powder rifles. They have pistols. And Grayston himself is actually a weaponsmith, so he has custom weapons of his own. He's using an early form of breech loaders instead of actual just black powder ball weapons. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And it's noted that he has a at the time a unique weapon. because he's able to put this packed shell in there and then close it, fire it, and then drop it out and put another one in. He's not having to go through the whole rigmarole of packing the powder and everything down in this thing. And I tried to emphasize that being something unique, because other characters they meet that have weapons, they're still using pretty standard black powder weapons. And, you know, then you have people still using swords, shields, maces. It really depends on where they are in the world. Early on, there's a thing, and I meant it to be very kind of off-putting, because when that military that attacks the home kingdom, they roll up with this thing that, as far as everybody knows, shouldn't exist. It's this big iron ship on these massive kind of like wheels that they literally roll up alongside this place, and they just start attacking it from this thing. And there's discussion with the people desperately trying to figure out what to do about this. Like, how does this thing exist? What is this? And that actually comes up later in the story. Like, where did this thing come from? How is it here? What is this technology kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, but that'd be just like us. If a spaceship came, we'd be saying, where'd it come from? You know, what kind of technology that are they using, and how are we going to protect ourselves from it? Or how are we going to fight back?
And one of the formative things with the lead character is because she's lived a fairly sheltered life. She's a good person, and she, you know, she believes in a lot of very justified things, but she's never traveled very far out into the world. And then one day, everything just comes down on their heads. This big land ship rolls up. The walls are torn down. They find out that they have traitors within their own kingdom who helped make this happen. And the next thing they know, they're dealing not only with Steel Fangs, who I described earlier, but his co-commander is much, like, just physically much more imposing and scary than this guy, because this guy has got plate, like, literally grafted onto his body. And he's this big, scary looking thing like the other guy, but he's got these goggle things covering his eyes. There's plate all over him. He's got all these protrusions. The one arm has these massive metal claws on it, and the guy's packing basically the medieval equivalent of a flamethrower. And he just breaks in this thing, and he's laying waste to people all over this place as he comes in, and just without a second's hesitation. And nobody knows what this is, let alone how to deal with it.
Or even why he even came there.
Exactly, because they have no idea why this attack came.
They'd all be in shock, basically, but they would all be scrambling to try to defend themselves and to save their loved ones. So, yeah, that put them all on the spot, and they got to work together to solve a problem. And that's good, because the fact that you, as you're reading it, trying to figure out also, why would they do that? You know, and how are these people going to be able to fight back before he takes them all out? You know,
and unfortunately, part of the reality of the scene was that most of them didn't, because that was setting up this, like, how dangerous this guy is and why he continues to be a problem later.
Yeah.
And it's also part of that is kind of hinting at the turn with the other commander of this army, because there's a scene, even though he's been killing these soldiers left and right, that one of the generals in this kingdom confronts him, and then they actually have basically an honor duel between the mercenary general and this general of their military.
Yeah.
Which is completely unexpected, you know, considering what's been going on before now. And that's when you get the first hint that this guy's not quite acting like the other ones. He's got some kind of an honor code or something going on with him.
But they got to figure out what it is. Yeah, I just shared the link to the Amazon
thank you.
website again, and the name of the books. And I'm going to share your YouTube channel real quick, the link to that. So anybody that's been watching can go to your YouTube and check it out, see what you have on there. There's a couple really fun videos on there that I was watching, and it kind of gives you a little taste of who he is, the author of these books. And I think it's important that people get to see you. You know what I mean? Just you being yourself, talking about something that you did. because you loved it, you loved this story, and you wanted to get it on paper so other people could get to read it and enjoy it as much as you wanted people to see it. You know what I mean? So it's like a dream, basically, because you have a story in you and you want to share it with others, but you have to go through all the work to get it down on paper where people can actually read it. Okay. And once they read it and they go, wow, this is really good, I can't wait till he makes another book. And it took you a while to do it, just like you and I went through the whole thing with Game of Thrones and all those books. Okay. And then we never got what we wanted at the end. We ended up with a show giving us what they think the ending should be, but it really wasn't from the books. We didn't get to read it. You know what I mean? So we were left hanging. So as a writer, you understand what that's like for the people reading your lore, basically. So that's why, it keeps you determined that, I'm going to do it and I'm going to get this third one done. It might take me this long, but I'm going to do it. No matter what, I'm finishing this. And maybe a side story, just like you just mentioned.
Yeah, so, I'm hoping. Got to get that third one done first. Because the main story I'm hoping is wrapped up with the third book. That's what I'm working towards. Because I've already kind of cut off a lot of the loose ends at the end of the second book. There's two major issues still unresolved by the time of the third book, which is where I'm heading with that.
Well, that's good though, because you already know what you want, and you just want to make sure you do it the right way, so you don't have to go back and fix things like you learned from the first book. So that's good. That proves that you can learn. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But because women have to tease men about that. Women say, "Oh my God, I had to tell him 25 times before he finished it." Whatever type of thing. I'm just teasing you. Yes. But
I've been married for 21 years. I can take it.
Yeah, so you know exactly what I'm talking about then. But the thing is that it's nice to see someone who actually got to do it, because you took the time that it took for you to finish it, and you didn't let anything else stop you from doing it. And then once you finished your first one and you got that little sense of accomplishment, I did it, I knew I could do it, and your mom was so happy, everyone was so happy for you, because they know how much work and how hard it was for you to do it. But then you still went on, you did the second one, and now you're past that and you're working on the third. That is huge.
Sometimes you need external influence to balance you out too. Like, not just my wife, my brother, literally, because when I finished the first book, I was jumping actually right into the second one. My brother's like, no, stop. He's like, take a couple of weeks and just chill before you try to start on the next book, so you don't burn yourself out immediately. And then, like, my friend, the other veteran, the author who was in the chat earlier, he had a similar thing. He's like, take some time, man. Which is funny, because he's further along in his books than I am.
but they're all right, to a degree. So it's best. What's really good is that you have such good people around you. So many people have nobody. They might have one good friend or whatever, but the thing is that you have a good core around you, and that's awesome. And I wish more people could have that stability around them. But the fact that you listen to what they say and you're thankful for them, even for your cat,
yes,
the thing
as
is,
much as he's trying to crawl on the desk right now.
It's what keeps you grounded. It keeps you humble. You know what I mean? It gives you.
You just go force your way on. All right, come here, get over here.
To be a good person and to be able to just say, okay, I'm going to take some time off, but I'm not going to take a lot of time, even though this might be still going 24/7. Your body's relaxing, and you have good people around you to help you through the parts where you're going, well, man, I need some motivation. Well, they're going to be able to motivate you. They're going to be able to talk to you about different things that what can we work on? How can we help you? Maybe I just need to go out and get a good, fat, juicy burger. I don't know. But what I mean is you're lucky to have that. And I'm thankful that you do have such good people around you to help you, you know, finish your goals, because so many people don't have that. And it's nice to see, and to see that you have 2 books that you've already finished. That's just awesome. So happy for you, because so many people would love to even have one, you know, even if it's not a book. I mean, maybe it's a sculpture, or they're a painting, or a movie that they want to see made, or whatever it is, a play. I've got some friends that are playwrights, and they've written one, and they've been working for years and years and years to try to get the second one, and they just can't seem to get over the hump, like you were just saying. But hopefully all you got to do is just stay busy in other areas, and hopefully that little whatever it is will come back, and you'll be able to be successful. But you just can't ever quit. You can't give up. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no,
and you're a definite example of that. You didn't give up, even though you struggled. You had a lot of problems and stuff. You've finally got over the hurdle, and it seems like it's really paid off for you. You know, I mean, I feel that. I think that you just stay on the straight and narrow, and you listen to what other people say, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to sway you. It just means that you listen, and you, okay, that's interesting. I'll take the information and see what happens. That type of thing. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight and sharing your story with me. I think it's wonderful, and I'm so happy for you. And I hope that maybe a few people, if they share what you've shared and share the links out and get to see it, that maybe they'll decide that they want to sit down and maybe take a gander at your books. So that's what I'm hoping. But thank you very much for joining me this evening.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
You're very welcome anytime. And when you get done with number 3, I sure would like to.
I'll make sure to let you know when I finally get it put together.
So yeah, because that's really good. Yeah, I was telling a couple people, definitely 2 of my sisters, I think, would definitely be interested in your books, because it seems like it's right up their alleys. Not the DD part of it, but the story.
But the story, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's been really fun and interesting. And I really, really want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. And thank you to everyone in the chat that hung out and stopped in, some for just a few minutes. But, you know, it was nice to see you, because we don't even know you're in here unless you say something in the chat.
Yeah.
I need to say that. But it's just nice to have people come in and show interest. That's, you know, that's a start. But everybody, thank you so much, and I hope to see you tomorrow night for my other show called The Friday Night Shit Show. But it's all political, so if you don't like politics, you probably shouldn't tune in, which is fine. But it's like my venting, you know, my way of just getting stuff off my chest or whatever. And it's
definitely understand that.
My
My brother and I usually just yell at each other about that stuff.
Yeah, well, you know, I do that too. I have 4 sisters, so they're like, you know, all at the same time. So. But
yes,
you,
Necro, it is up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And you guys have a wonderful evening. And I'll talk to everybody later. Bye.